Everyone apologize for the delay. I move that we leave executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Divney. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I apologize for the delay there. We were in a bit of an executive session that ran a little longer than expected after the police commission. So we're going to start. We have a couple of announcements, or an announcement and a presentation. So if we could have Chief Nolte come up for the announcement regarding the Lieutenant Jack Lyman Auxiliary Police Service Award. Is he
I
here?
don't think he's here.
He's not here. Maybe he had the wrong date.
Yeah, no, that's just an announcement for today.
Oh, my mistake. The next meeting, Chief Nolte will be here. He'll present the Jack Lyman Auxiliary Police Service Award. I didn't miss that part of the announcement. Anyway, presentation from Zach Whitman, DVM, regarding Orangetown Safe Turtle Crossing Project on Western Highway. So, there you go. If you just go to the podium, on the microphone.
I think so.
For having me, everyone. My name is Zach Whitman. I'm a veterinarian and a wildlife rehabilitator, and my passion is for reptiles and reptile conservation and reptile medicine. And I wanted to come here tonight to give you guys and the people watching at home and the board just some background information about what we're doing on the Western Highway with the turtle population there. I got involved in this project a couple of years ago when I was a veterinarian at Valley Cottage Animal Hospital. Is that my time over there?
No, I'm setting it for the next guy. You don't have time. Please do respect.
I got involved as a veterinarian doing a lot of wildlife rehabilitation, seeing a lot of turtles coming in, getting hit on the road in the exact same spot year after year. And I started looking into it a little bit, and I found that there was already a group of people headed by Carolyn here, who started this group called the Turtles of the Western Highway, who were already aware that there was a problem here where a lot of animals were getting hit at the same spot every year. And so we've started to collaborate, and over the past couple of years, this has really grown into something very, very unique and very special. We've got a real lot of support from the town here, from Clarkstown, from the county, from the Hudson Valley Humane Society, and we're really happy about the grassroots public support that this has generated for these animals. So I wanted to just start out by giving a little bit of background about the habitat. I don't know how many people are aware, right here in this town is one of the biggest intact wetlands in southern New York. The Hackensack River starts up in High Tor and flows all the way down to the New Jersey Meadowlands. And for the past 100 years, the majority of the river has been considered one of the most polluted bodies of water in the United States. It's a Superfund site down in New Jersey. There's multiple dams that have been put on the river that have damaged the ecology of the river. But up here, we're sort of at the headwaters of it, and the wetland and the body of water that is just to the west of the Western Highway is one of the last sort of clean areas on the river where there is good habitat for wildlife, and not just turtles. Birds and all kinds of animals are used in this environment. The area is part of New York City drinking water supply, and so it's fenced off. It's not something that people can go and see, and a lot of people drive right past this place every day and have no idea they're driving past hundreds of acres of wetland. And this area is home to a very large population of turtles. The snapping turtles are the ones that we're sort of focused on. They are the biggest and the most obvious, but there are a lot of species of turtles that are in there that are all having the same problems that the snappers are having. And just today, actually, we had a wood turtle get hit on the Western Highway, which is a very rare species in New York. And we haven't done very much surveying. We don't know what other species are present in this wetland, but New York is home to a lot of very, very rare turtles. And so we're hoping to get some more information about the species that are using this habitat. The whole environment here has changed tremendously over the past 100 years, and the turtles have a tremendous lifespan and a tremendous memory, and you it's sort of amazing to think that there are probably turtles that are alive today living in this wetland that remember this area before there were cars in it. And the length of time that it takes to show population declines when you have a species with such a long lifespan and such a late maturity makes it very difficult to study and appreciate any changes in the population. So the turtles we have here, we know we have snapping turtles, we know we have painted turtles, and we know we have box turtles. Those are three of the more common species in New York State. But there's definitely some more rare stuff using the habitat as well. I wanted to talk just for a second about snapping turtles because I find them amazing. They have a bad reputation as being aggressive, as sportsmen, fishermen and duck hunters tend to not like them. People tend to be very afraid of them. But the truth is that they're actually very benign animals. Bites from snapping turtles are almost unheard of unless you're actively provoking the animal. And they have an incredible biology. They can live to be somewhere between 50 and 100 years old. They are the apex predator in our freshwater ecosystems here. A big adult snapping turtle can be 40, 50, 60 pounds. We don't see turtles that are that size here very often anymore, which is something I'll get into in a second. They have a very long generation time. In this area, turtles take about 15 to 18 years before they lay eggs for the first time. And then they go on to lay eggs for a very long time through the majority of their lifespan. So the biggest question we're getting is, why bother? These turtles have been doing this crossing for a long time. They're a relatively common species. The snapping turtle is the New York State reptile. Why are we concerned here? We're all almost a little bit numb to seeing all the roadkill on the road, especially this time of year. And why is it different for turtles than it is for squirrels or for deer or for anything else? And the truth of it is turtles are not adapted to lose adult animals. An adult snapping turtle has no natural predators. They're supposed to live for a really long time. The hatchlings and the eggs suffer huge mortalities. They fall prey to all kinds of things. But once they make it to adulthood, they really don't have very many natural predators at all. And there are very good studies that show that if you do remove adults from a population, like what we have here on the Western Highway, where we're consistently getting adult turtles that are hit by cars, that does cause population decline. And what we're seeing on the Western Highway is we're not seeing any of these big adult turtles anymore. The vast majority of the turtles that are crossing the Western Highway are slightly larger than a dinner plate. They weigh 15, 18, 20 pounds. And these are females that are 15, 18, 25 years old, and they are only making it across this road a handful of times before they're getting hit, and they're getting picked off before they're reaching that adult size. And it would take literally someone's lifetime to study them long enough to measure this population decline. But it is happening, and it is happening slowly right under our noses. So the main problem for these turtles is roads. Another problem is subsidized predators. So in this area, we don't have any big predators like lions and bears and things like that. But we have lots of small predators, things like raccoons and skunks and house cats and foxes. And all these are animals that survive better because of us, better because of our activities and our garbage and our sewer systems and things like that. So we have very unnaturally high numbers of these types of predators, which does have an effect on the eggs and on the number of hatchlings that survive. So on the Western Highway, every year at the end of May, beginning of June, we see dozens and dozens and dozens of turtles crossing. Carolyn has been out there and crossed more than 20 turtles on the same day on the same stretch of road. And we wanted to come up with a solution that would prevent the adult turtles from getting hit. That's the number one biggest thing that we need to do to help conserve these animals. And so last year we erected a temporary fence. And last year was the first year that no turtles were hit on the Western Highway. So it was very successful. And this year we've continued on that success. We've extended the fence. We've created more nesting areas for these turtles on the safe side of the road. And so far everything is going very well. We did have one turtle that made it over the fence and did manage to get hit already this year. So we did lose one turtle this year. But I wanted to talk about our vision here, what we're doing right now, what we're trying to do, and where it might go from here. The fencing we chose right now is temporary construction fencing. You can see a little bit of it on the picture up there. It's silt fencing from construction sites, and the only reason why we chose this is because I thought it was the cheapest thing that had a chance at containing these snapping turtles. So far, we've been running off of very, very small budgets and volunteer workers, and it's been amazing to see what we've done so far. But this is obviously not an ideal permanent solution. This fence is not very durable, and as we're finding out this year, that if the snappers are really determined enough, a few of them have managed to climb over it or tear holes in it, and that type of thing. So right now, we're still sort of in our exploratory phases. We are trying to see if they will use the artificial nesting areas that we've created for them, and so far they are. We want to see if these artificial nesting areas are concentrating the predators. We want to know if these eggs and these nests that they're laying in our artificial mounds are actually producing hatchlings and being successful. So we're going to be monitoring that this year in terms of the amount of hatchlings coming out. One big concern that we've gotten from the public is that we're concentrating these animals and all these nests are getting dug up. And if we do see that, then we're going to have to make some adjustments to how we're managing those nesting areas. The biggest concern right now is turtles that do manage to get onto the wrong side of the fence are stuck on that side of it. And so we do need to, there are a lot of different devices that people use to make one-way gates and fences so that turtles that do get on the wrong side of it can get back, but they can't get through. So that's a big goal for us for the future is better fencing, prettier fencing. A lot of other things are going on to help these turtles. We're really trying to work on signage and speeding on the road. Speeding is not just an issue for the turtles here. This is a very windy road with no shoulder, no sidewalk, no nothing, and residential houses on one side of it with people who want to walk up and down the road. And cars do go very fast there. So we've had a lot of really great cooperation from the police department and the highway department getting signs up. There's mobile signs that say watch out for the turtles. There's stationary signs that are just the diamond turtle crossing signs. And we really hope to continue that and improve that and help get even more police presence there, and that type of thing. The biggest thing is that I think people can do at home, and people who want to help. Certainly you can contact Turtles of the Western Highway through their Facebook page, and you can get involved, you can volunteer. You can help control some of these small predators, so by keeping your garbage locked up, by not allowing raccoons to live in your attic or under your porch or things like that, calling exterminators and those types of things. Reporting hit by car turtles. Wherever you are in New York State, there are wildlife rehabilitators that can help these animals. And you would be astounded at turtles that look totally dead and smashed can still recover. And putting these individual animals back out there actually has conservation impact. As much as I like to save any animal from being run over by a car, squirrels are not suffering population loss from getting hit by cars, but these turtles really are. The biggest thing I think people can do for the Western Highway is educate themselves and help advocate for what we're doing, and talk to your neighbors. We've had a lot of miseducated, undereducated people who are very worried about what we're doing and some of the negative impacts that the fence can have. And I just want to take this opportunity to sort of reassure people that we're very aware of all of the potential drawbacks of a fence like this and the effects that it has on a variety of different wildlife. And we're going to be managing all those things very carefully.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it. So we're going to move on to the public hearing on Galway Bay. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Is that Councilman Troy with the motion, Councilman Patari with the second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have a sign-in sheet. We'll start with that, and then I'll take anyone who didn't get a chance to sign in. Mike Mandel of Pearl River. I'm sorry, no, sorry. We're going to start with the applicant. My mistake. Go.
So, Chris, just before the applicant goes, if the clerk can...
Yes,
Okay.
we have both notice postings and the affidavit from Joyce and the town clerk that it was posted.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Board. My name is Brian Quinn. I'm the attorney for the applicant, Dion's Way LLC. My office is at 67 North Main Street, New City, New York, but as many of you know, I do live in Pearl River. With us tonight, besides myself, is Jay Greenwell, a surveyor who prepared the draft site plan. We also have Bob Hone, who's our architect. We also have principal of the entity that owns the property, Tom Acton. We also have Kevin Joyce from Joyce Realty here in case there's any questions regarding the demand for this type of senior housing in the Pearl River area. This is a petition for a zone change. The property is on William Street in Pearl River, very close to the corner of Central Avenue. In fact, if you're familiar with Pearl River, you know on the corner of Central and William is an old movie theater that is in fact now under the PAC zone. And there's commercial space on the first floor and residential units above. And the proposal that we presented in the petition is of a similar nature. This building is, what's you notice most about it is the fact that it is the office of Joyce Realty in Pearl River. There's a couple of other businesses that also rent space there. It's a one-story building. The proposal is to add 2 additional floors, which would be utilized for residential apartments in the PAC zone. Each floor would be approximately 9,150 square feet for a total of addition of 18,300 square feet. The new space would be used for 16 senior housing units, strictly 1- and 2-bedroom units only. They will be market rate. The cost of development and construction is fairly substantial, so you know, we will be renting, the units would be rented at market rates, and we do believe there's demand for this kind of housing. The PAC zone itself in the Orangetown zoning code has a number of requirements attached to the petition. I don't know, you presumably all have a copy of the petition, but we have a proposed site plan, we have a vicinity and zoning map, we have the tax lot map, we have also one of the requirements under PAC is a traffic study, and also a market analysis to confirm the need for additional senior housing rental units in the town of Orangetown. And then also is attached is a list of all of the property owners who are entitled to this notice within 500 feet of the property. So that's the petition and all of the exhibits attached. So that's really a summary of what the proposed project is. 2 additional floors on the existing Joyce Realty building, 16 residential senior housing units, 8 on each floor, strictly 1- and 2-bedroom units. We have gotten some, and you probably have in your package there, we've gotten some, a memo in from the building inspector, Jane Slavin. There's also a letter in from county planning that has reviewed this and provided some comments. And I believe there's also a letter from the town planning board regarding this. We have spent a fair amount of time looking at the PAC zone. And in fact, before this meeting, we asked for a meeting with the town attorney and the building inspector, and they graciously afforded us the time to sit down and review the proposal with them, because frankly, we were all a little confused about some of the provisions of the PAC zone, what's allowed. In one place, for example, the floor area ratio is 0.4. Another place it mentions 0.45. So we found some issues that were a little difficult to work with. So I didn't want to get too far into the particulars tonight about some of those things. We think that's probably more appropriate at a later meeting. The PAC zoning does afford the town board, which in this instance would be the board that would review and consider this. They do allow them some flexibility in determining what are appropriate number of units, things of that nature. Some of them, though, also clearly would probably require referral to the Town Zoning Board of Appeals. So we stand ready, willing, and able, and we were interested in hearing some comments and feedback, both from the town board and from the members of the public tonight. So if you have any questions of me, Jay, did you want to add anything, or did I summarize everything? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jay Greenwell, land surveyor and land planner. This is a fairly large site for Pearl River. It's over half an acre. It's currently developed, as Brian mentioned, with an existing commercial building. It has frontage on both on North William and on North Main Street, and right now there are approximately 38 parking spaces on site. The applicant's original idea was to try and secure an approval for apartments that would not be restricted as to age, but we all decided that that was too big an undertaking, and there really is no framework in the current zoning for that application, although there's probably quite a bit of demand. Instead, Mr. Acton decided to follow the example of the old movie theater next door, which has 14 apartments on the second and third floors of the old movie theater, and a site of 0.16 acres, and again, with retail and offices on the ground floor and no parking. Let me stress that again, there was no parking for that site. When we looked into this project, it made quite a bit of sense. There is a demand that is supported by the real estate data that we provided with the petition. We have a larger site with on-site parking, which is very unusual for downtown Pearl River, and there's also a town parking lot available right next door. One of the appeals of this project is that there would be almost no impact on the site from construction. The addition of the 2 floors above the existing building would not have any increase in the impervious area, since the project area is almost all paved and mostly building now. The site would need to be restriped to improve the traffic flow, but there would be no impact on drainage, no loss of vegetation, and for the most part, we believe that the uses would not be in conflict with each other. The times of peak parking demand for the office and retail would be during the day, while the times of peak demand for the residential uses would be overnight and on the weekends. A traffic analysis that Brian mentioned was submitted in support of our application. In fact, part of the rationale for the PAC zoning is that many residents would presumably avail themselves of public transportation into the city and other areas served by the train, and would walk to worship and to dine, run errands and such to the post office, banking, and enjoy other entertainment available locally. All necessary utilities are currently available to the site: sewer, water, telephone, gas, electric, etc. There would be no appreciable impact on the need for emergency services or for recreational services from the town. And a covenant that would be filed in the county clerk's office restricting this to residents of over 55 would preclude any impact on the local school system.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the board for the applicant before we move to public comment? No? Okay. All right, thank you. So we're gonna.
Thank you.
We can go back to that.
Yeah, we can come back. We'll take you back up when we get done with the comment. All right, now Mike Mandel of Pearl River, you're up. You can close that. Yeah,
Okay.
that's not paying you.
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the Town Board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. I'm speaking tonight as a resident of Pearl River, not as a member of or representing the Planning Board of the Town of Orangetown. I want to make that clear at the beginning. When we look at the comprehensive plan for Pearl River, it talks Pearl River is reminiscent of a small town. Central business districts clustered around Central Avenue where shops and stores line the pedestrian thing. Parking in downtown Pearl River is an issue for both shoppers and commuters and should be addressed. It talks about long-term mixed-use development. Now, the movie theater was mentioned in there. If the movie theater did not open, it should be repurposed for residential, which it was in fact done. That was part of the master plan. And when we talk about within walking distance, this development, religious institutions are not within walking distance, not for people over 55. And if they go into the 60s and 70s, they're no way going to make it up the hill to St. Margaret's Church. And that's an impossibility, I'd say, unless they're running around on the track all day. But what I wanted to say was this. You know, over the last several years, the land use boards have approved residential developments and businesses in downtown Pearl River that have not met parking requirements. There's not been enough parking down there. They were approved based upon the use of public parking, both the town and NJ Transit facilities, or private parking lots that are not in use by local businesses during their hours of operation. I think the last one was Defiant Brewery, which is going to be using Dexter Plaza parking in the evenings or weekends when not being used by the businesses there. But what I think, before any new projects are approved, the comprehensive plan as it relates to Pearl River should be reviewed. This includes what are the exact number of total parking spots within the town. This would include the number allotted to current businesses, residential units, as in the case of the movie theater and that PAC development, they use some of the parking there. Now, we're talking about, this project is talking about 16 units, which would be, according to the comprehensive plan, they talk about 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Now, if we look at the 38 parking spots they say they currently have, are any of the businesses going to be removed from their building in order to accommodate parking? That's one of the questions that I have regarding that. Secondly, we need to know the realistic number of available parking spots in downtown Pearl River. We've had businesses open up. We've had several restaurants and bars expanding. We've had other places coming in, all based upon the fact that in the evenings or on weekends there'd be parking available. Now, we say the people over 55 won't have cars. They probably will have cars. Most people do in this area. Now, there are other groups also discussing building in the downtown Pearl River area. One is a millennial project that's being discussed by people. I don't know if they come before the board yet or anything to that effect, but it is being discussed. When I talk to people in downtown Pearl River, they talk about that with parking underneath, redeveloping other areas. So what are we going to have here? The integrity of the downtown area of Pearl River is what makes it a small town. You know, we have the railroad station, the park, the clock, the cannon, the police station there. Now, if we start spot zoning, what are we going to put here? We're going to put a 3-story building here, a 2-story building here. Is somebody going to come in with a 4-story building? We should have an overall master plan. So the comprehensive plan for downtown Pearl River should definitely be revised. Now, for this, they're figuring that the people that are going to move into this unit, and if we look at the people moving into this unit, are they all going to be people that are working, or are they going to be people not working? Where they're going to park their cars during the day, if in fact the businesses need their spots? So are we getting rid of parking, or are we going to say, oh, we have 10 cars here, or 15 cars are going to be parked here all day? What happens to these parking spots for the businesses? So I think this is something that should be discussed before we have a hodgepodge in downtown Pearl River that changes the whole integrity of the unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have Kathy, is it Calvi? Or C-A-L-Y, C-A-L-V? C-A-L-V-I.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Calvi. I live here in Pearl River. I just wanted to say that I think that there's a large need for these apartments. A lot of people don't have a place to go. They don't want to sell their houses because they want to stay with their families. And a lot of them, they take care of their grandchildren, so they don't want to go outside of Pearl River. They want to stay there. And I think these apartments would be perfect for them. The apartments down the road are quite expensive. These, I think, would be possibly a little better. And I think for the parking, I work in town. If I put 4 quarters in and get a permit, it's like 9 hours. I mean, it's, $1 a day for parking is not bad at all. It's really, really good. So I'm just saying that we do need apartments desperately. That's all.
Thank you. Eddie O'Day, who's up next? Whenever you're ready.
Good evening. Town Board, thank you for all you do. Mr. Day, thank you. This is pretty exciting. Again, you know, I'm coming to a part of my life where I'm age eligible. Kids are just about out of the house. It's an exciting project where there is a parking spot, so it's something that we are looking at. I know Tommy Acton a very long time. He is a Pearl River resident. He's honest, trustworthy. He's very community-minded. I'm very involved in a lot of projects in Rockland. Lord's Kids of Rockland, big supporter. He's also, his company has done work at my house, and I probably have the best deck in the town of Orangetown if you look at the quality of work. And I mean that honestly. If you take a look, I have a picture on my phone if anyone wants to see it after. On a personal note, he's kind, he's a professional businessman, and he'd be asset to the, he's a huge asset to the town. So please, I'm proud to support him today, and I hope hope the board supports him because it's a great project, and I think it's going to do well for the town, bringing more people in, living inside the town, and bringing more business because it is expanding and it's starting to, you know, it was very quiet there for a long time. A lot of empty stores, and now they're starting business, it's starting to grow, so it's a good thing. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. If Kevin Joyce signed in as well? Do you want to go up and speak, or do you want to wait to see if, because you're with the applicant technically, I mean? Yeah, okay, we could do that now, that's fine.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Joyce from Joyce Realty from Pearl River. I can tell you, being in that building for 26 years, I have never seen that side of William Street fully occupied, especially with the municipal lot that is right next door to it. The building initially, for those of you who aren't aware, it was a Grand Union back in the 50s. So it's a very unusual piece of property within the town that runs two streets, both on William and on Main. It has encapsulated parking within the building, within the site, then street parking on both sides and on the side, as well as a municipal lot. I've grown up in this town. I care about this town. I walk around this town at 5 o'clock. It's dead. It's quiet. There's nothing. I mean, you know, it would be nice to see, you know, like Brian brought up that Tom is going with the PAG zoning because that's there and it's an easier path to get to where he wants to go to. But I can tell you it's an absolute shame that Pearl River does not have apartments for young people, you know, that they could go to. I mean, everything that's being built around in Orangetown, the club, you know, the Hollows, the Meadows, everything. Pearl River is a town of friendly people. We're going to be renamed the town of old people, because if we don't have any people that are staying in this town that want to stay. The first gentleman brought up that this is a small walking town. Pearl River, we have rail. You know, we're a very vibrant town. We're the largest hamlet in the state of New York. We could be Orangetown. We could be Clarkstown. There's a movement of people that want to do that. I don't want to see that. I think we're stronger as a whole. But I'm very proud of Pearl River, and I think that I know by doing a lot of corporate relocation and my whole career of being in real estate is that there is a substandard amount of apartments that are available in Pearl River, especially in the town proper of Pearl River. There's nothing. There's one across from the field from where Sitzmark used to be, that the CPA brought, that little brick building, and the rest is on Main Street, and they're in little houses. So something like this, and it's not a huge dense amount of units, 16 apartments coming into Pearl River would be a wonderful thing and an asset to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is everyone else here for public comment on the Galway Bay application? Okay, yes, sir. Gentleman in the black polo there.
Good evening, Town Board, everybody. I just wanted to comment, I just rented in a,
You say your name and
oh.
Hamlet is also,
Timothy Wolf from Pearl River, New York.
thank you.
I opened a business about 1 year ago in Pearl River on Main Street on Central. So the project is right behind where my apartment is. I just want to say that during the daytime parking, there's about half the spots are open, so that was brought up. The lot's never full. And I think that Pearl River downtown could use a lot more apartments. Keeping people in the community is always a good thing. I think it's going to benefit the shop owners, it's going to benefit the town as a whole, and it's going to just trickle down from there, keeping people in the town. I have a lot of family members that are older that are pretty much forced to move out of Pearl River because there's not enough housing. So just saying that I think it's a good idea and it'd be good for the town. That's it.
Thank you. Other folks for comment on the Galway Bay? Yes? Again, if you just state your name and Hamlet for the record when you get up there, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bonnie Wolf. I'm Tim's mom and a friend of Tom's. I moved to Pearl River 45 years ago from the city, and I absolutely love Pearl River. About 8 years ago, my kids have finished school, and kind of the taxes were high, so I sold my house in Pearl River. Biggest mistake I ever made. I lived in Nanuet, the Hamlets, and though it's nice there, it was nothing like Pearl River. So I said, well, I'll give it a shot. Well, now a couple of years have passed, and my children came back to Pearl River, and they're not leaving. So I think I need to come back to Pearl River. And I was looking for a small apartment, and I really couldn't find one. My partner passed away, so, I'm on my own. So when I heard that Tom wanted to do these apartments, I thought it was the greatest thing. So I know a lot of people my age, close to my age, they are selling their houses, and they are moving away because there isn't enough small housing in Pearl River. I know we would be blessed if we could have these apartments built. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Other folks for public comment on the Galway Bay application? Thought I saw another hand or two, but if not, okay. Do we want to, have any questions? Want to bring the applicant back up first? Do we want to continue, make a motion on the hearing? I mean, it's up to you guys. Do you have any questions for the applicant? All right, this time?
There's no idea how much he's gonna go for, because what I'm hearing is that people are saying they want to move into these apartments, but they want them to be affordable, that, and you're talking market rate, so.
Are they going to be less than the ones in
I mean-
Orangeburg, or? Yeah.
Well, moderately priced, Dennis. I mean, because you do have the point, but you're talking market rate. What does that mean to you right now?
Less than what a house cost you? Or,
What, well,
you know,
bottom line, what is
because some of
I
them
mean,
cost
they
more
have to
than-
have an idea what they want to rent these out for.
Yeah, well, I don't know, Kevin, could you, because you have expertise in apartments in Pearl River, what they go for. I know that you did produce
If
some
you could just go to,
information.
just because they
Yeah.
can't hear it on TV, sorry.
Oh, excuse me. So, a one-bedroom that's going in, say, a multifamily on, say, Main Street is going for $1,600. That's dated and old. So you'd see one-bedrooms anywhere between $1,500 to, say, $1,800 a month, and you could see two-bedrooms going anywhere between $1,800 to $2,200 a month. And that's a lot less expensive than the club that's à la carte that goes up to $3,000, where you're paying $45 for a dog every month. So
So you won't be charging for dogs this week?
we won't, I know he won't be charging for dogs.
Just checking.
Or for turtles.
Turtles either. Good. We gotta allow the turtles to go somewhere. Other questions?
Yeah, I just, question that I've been getting from a lot of residents, because most people do support this, but they're all worried about the parking. And I hear everybody saying that there's plenty of parking on the street, but they're worried that, you're required to have, I don't know what it is, 60-something spots, and you've got about half of that. There's no way that you guys can conceive adding parking somewhere, taking out a store. I don't know. That the only concern that anybody's expressed to me was parking, because they didn't think that the movie theater, the way it went in, no parking was a really good idea. In fact, they thought it backfired. So the only concern, everybody thinks it's a great idea, is parking. So
The Amos James building has 0 parking.
that's what I mean, and I wasn't on the board, Kevin, when that was approved, and that, everybody's saying that that was not a good thing to be approved with 0 parking.
Good.
Yeah,
Wait, time out. It wasn't approved with 0 parking. What it was approved with is because we had excess capacity on some of the parking lots in behind, now Gilday's was Sharon's, also the William Street parking lot on the north end of William Street next to Joyce Realty. There are spots that were available, and what they have to do, people had to buy them, get them with permits. I still think there's excess capacity there, that you could do this. And the fact, I think it's, the one question was asked, if there's 38 spaces, is that 38 spaces irrespective of the commercial spaces that are allotted to the current commercials? In terms of just trying to figure out how many extra spaces are gonna be needed, to come out of the municipal parking.
Maybe Jay, if you want to discuss the parking.
Dennis, we got a letter from Jane, which pretty much tells
Yeah.
you.
What page is that?
Second page.
I guess it's not only right now, but I think Mr. Mandel brought up a good point. I know there's 3 businesses that are relocating the Pro River right now. You've got the coffee shop on East Central, AJ's Catering, and another business that wants to go in down there, and they're all relying on the parking that's provided by the town via parking spots. So Mr. Joyce brought up a good point. There is, and so did Mike, they are going to have a presentation coming in very soon regarding millennial housing. So we gotta have something to do with the parking, because it's gonna be a problem.
I agree with you in terms of we have to consider the parking. However, one of the things that I've seen different from my days back in the Bronx, where I parked 4 blocks away because I couldn't find a parking space, in the evening, all right? You have people now that park in front of one store and then drive another block and a half to go to the next store, or then say they don't have parking because they don't go down to William Street, or they don't go in front of Joyce Realty. Those spots are normally on the other side of the street, or normally open. People do not look around for spots. They don't. And it's funny, because we've had a lot of criticism because of the diagonal parking. Thank God for the diagonal parking. All right, it makes it a little more unsafe in some people's eyes, but what it has done is slow down the traffic in downtown Pearl River, for one thing, but it's also provided a significant number of spaces, which has helped downtown Pearl River. So, Tom, I agree with you. It has to be looked at, but I don't see it as a showstopper.
I mean, just my wife runs her business out of downtown Pearl River. I'm there all the time. I mean, at certain times of day, is it hard to get a spot right in front of like the bar you want to go to? Yeah, but I mean, I know that corner where Mary's is, and like there's always spots there if you loop around. I mean, I've never once parked more than a block and a half from her studio. It is what it is. I mean, that does not change the fact, though, however, that as we're looking at broader changes to Pearl River, one, we have to consider how this fits into what we're looking at doing. And 2, we have to realize that when we do some sort of broader changes, and we are working with bringing on a firm to investigate what that looks like and put together a plan for what the proper zone for downtown Pearl River looks like, which would give us parking requirements and give us all this thing. We have to consider how this falls into what that likely will look like. It does have parking on the parcel, which most of these type of applications wouldn't, and in theory, the structure would probably be similar to the sort of thing we're looking to do anyway. The question is just, do we want to go ahead with it and get a little bit ahead? If we feel comfortable, we can fall back on whatever plan is overlaid, or do we want to wait and get that full plan in place before we do a one-off in advance of it? It's really more of a theoretical question in my mind.
Again, I'm not trying to put the brakes on anything. It was a simple question, if they could think of a way of adding a few more spots, or, if there isn't, then there isn't. But, that the only concern I heard from anybody is not about the building, not about the people. They think it's a great idea, it's a great concept. It's, there's gonna be parking issues.
William, Anthony,
Jay, you got it. Sorry, Kevin, sorry, wrong name. Kevin, you can go to the mic. Otherwise, it's us talking to no one and everyone's watching.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm Kevin Joyce. You have parking on two streets. You have William Street and Main Street. This building flows across two streets, as well as having the lot itself on Main Street, which has the bulk of parking, on the side of the building, and then on both, on Main Street and on William, we have parking, as well as a municipal parking lot, which I've been in that building for 26 years, and I have never seen more than 8 cars in that parking lot, besides the St. Patrick's Day Parade. So, I mean, parking, in my estimation, is not an issue. If you increase with 16 more residents inside of the town of Pearl River, you know, with nice accommodations where people really would like to be able to walk instead of drive from the club or drive from the Meadows, but be able to walk to the town and walk through the town, go to the rail, you know, it's a no-brainer. The impact on the parking, with all due respect, you know, you could say area ratio and all this other stuff. I have never seen on Williams' side with the municipal lot it full, ever. Even with Amon Lane being there for, I don't know when his thing was approved, but that went up much higher than I thought it was going to go up. And I can tell you that they have zero. I've spoke to Veronica Lane and Margaret Doyle today, Lane Boyle, and they're at 100% occupancy, and there's no Section 8 whatsoever in that building, and there is no permits. Not one of their tenants go to the town and ask for a permit. So, if this is on TV, that's what's the case.
What I was just asking Dennis about, when the movie theater came in, wasn't there some sort of additional money put into a parking, to offset the lack of parking on the part of the applicant?
I think there was.
There
It was
was.
about $1,000.
What did that come
But-
to?
It was about $1,000. I don't know if it was $1,000 a spot, and then there was a yearly permit. And one of the things it does is it would go into the parking fund. The parking fund for Pearl River goes right back. It doesn't go into our general fund, but it goes right back into the Pearl River Business District.
Veronica Lane and Margaret Lane Boyle both attested to me that they have never written a check to any type of parking authority.
Well, then they owe us money.
Go
Jeff,
ahead, go
where's Jeff?
ahead. But I'm just telling you, the impact it would be onto the town of Pearl River would be
Yeah.
nothing but negligible.
Okay, if I could, Rob, go ahead.
Sure, just with respect to the parking, I believe, and, you know, I understand it's probably going to get put over to the next meeting, but I believe at the time that the one for the movie theater went in, we established parking passes or permits for that lot off of Washington Avenue that kind of goes back behind those stores on Central. And they were overnight, and you can get them, and they're available. I know the town clerk had, they set aside some spots. They're available there, and it was for the movie theater because there were 0 spots. But, you know, whether or not they're paying, I guess that's something we should look into.
You should look into that.
Yeah, but they were made so that if these people needed it, they could get a permit. And that's really what the intent was behind that. It wasn't necessarily that they would get permits, but if somebody had an apartment there and wanted a space,
That seems like a reasonable compromise.
they could go to the town and get it. Now,
Pay for
the
some
fact that
spots.
we're potentially adding 16 more, again, you might want to look into that next time to explore that with the town clerk's office and the police department, maybe about the number of eligible spots. I think just driving by myself, maybe there's 4 or 5 that are designated, and maybe they can designate a few more, because, you know, again, other than St. Patrick's Day Parade, I don't think anybody really parks there. But that's an option, just to kind of, so that people can have that option if it's available.
This issue came up, we made an informal presentation, and this issue came up about parking before, and we did look into speaking with the town clerk, because there is the municipal parking lot that directly abuts this, proposed development. And, you know, in all the time that I've been there, I have never seen that lot filled, but we could certainly look into perhaps getting permits for some of those spaces if the residents so demand. I mean, I would envision that probably each one of the apartment renters, there'd be 16 units, would probably get one reserved spot in the parking lot. So that would, and Kevin has said he's never seen his parking lot filled at all. And with the addition of the option of having additional spaces in that municipal parking lot that abuts our property, I think that would address any such concern, but we're more than willing to consider that.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable compromise.
The PAC zoning does afford you as the town board some flexibility in determining some of the requirements. And if, we could certainly look into this further. And, if that's what this town board would like, we could certainly consider doing that.
And
Yes.
the only thing I'd comment with respect to that, though, is obviously there's businesses there and an existing site plan, presumably, for which that parking applies. So any spots that are taken away, from businesses would have to be addressed.
I
But
also do want to add that I've talked with Jim Dean, and some of us have bandied about the idea about extending the angled parking up further, which would increase the number of spots in the downtown, generally at basically no cost to us, but it's another option to increase parking overall, and if we're talking broadly right now.
the only other thing I want to say about parking before Jay goes, Jay, we met, myself, Jay, Jane, Brian. This is a downtown district, a CS district. That's why this is permitted here. There's two ways they can go in. One is as a redevelopment site. The other is the way the movie theater went in as a conversion. With the movie theater site, when that came in, this board could set everything in terms of bulk requirements, in terms of parking, et cetera, lot area. With respect to this site, which we're really, and Jane provided a memo earlier today after our consultation, this is really being treated as a redevelopment site. There are many bulk requirements that this board can set. There are bulk requirements in the code, but this board can modify them, and presumably the applicant's asking you to modify them to fit their project. One of them is a requirement for 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. Again, that's something this board can modify when it approves it. I've been involved in other projects. I see Mr. Emmanuel where up in Suffern, it was modified, and again, similar to what I mentioned about, it was modified knowing that there were available spots elsewhere that the residents could get permits for, but that is something this board would address. There are 3 areas where this board wouldn't address that they're going to need variances, but again, we'll discuss that later. They'd have to go to zoning board as part of the site plan approval. But again, that's for down the road. But I just want to put that out there that, this is something that there are certain lot and bulk controls that this board can set or modify, but then there are some that it can't. And again, county planning has commented on that, so that's something we'll have to address if and when there's a vote on it.
So, unless there's any other
Mr.
questions.
Supervisor, I just had one
Yeah,
last comment.
Go ahead, sorry.
And it was just to quantify what we had in mind with respect to the parking. We were thinking of allocating 3 spaces per tenant. He has 5 tenants in there, that's 15 spaces. That would leave 23 left, which almost meets the 1.5 spaces for 16, which would be 24. So we're very close to what, and with the off-site parking and permanent parking that's been discussed, we feel very confident that the parking needs would be met. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So when it comes to the mechanics of this, I think based on some of the notices and comments that we received from the circulation notices, we have to continue.
Excuse me.
Right, to July. We're going to continue this because there was an issue with the county planning comment came back and.
Well, county, excuse me, county planning just came in today. We got Jane's memo, and there were some other issues we were going to discuss, but I think the game plan was to adjourn this public hearing for one more time, and if the board's inclined to vote or proceed as it wishes.
So is everyone comfortable with continuing to a subsequent meeting, or do you want to move now? It's up to you. So continue. So we were looking at July 24th at 8:05 is what we projected if we did continue it. Okay. Any other comments? Did we want to make the motion or? You won't be, okay.
You probably will need a supermajority, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
okay, so,
Don't put it to the first meeting in August.
well, we could always,
Excuse me.
we're, s- we have other ones that we haven't set yet for July 17th. That we could be set, we're supposed to be setting the course of this meeting, that we can move back to the 24th, where we wouldn't need a supermajority.
Timing-wise, you're fine, you know.
Are you around on
it's
the
your
17th
call.
of July or no?
That's two.
You good? You good on the 17th? You good on the 17th? Because this one, the other ones I don't think require, so like, what is it? We have the 17th, in the course of this meeting, we're looking to set
So,
do we need a certain ones.
supermajority just to pass the county planning board, or for the whole thing?
Just for the county planning, but,
Why don't we just vote to?
well, we don't, yeah, I'd recommend putting it over, because we don't have the resolution, so.
Yeah, okay.
um,
So why don't we just, we'll do, we were kind of game planning where we put the hearings. We'll move one of these other ones we were projecting for the 17th of July to the 24th, and then we'll move this one to the 17th of July, and we'll do that. Okay. So, do I have a motion to continue the public hearing to July 17th at 8:05 PM? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. All right, great. So that's gonna go here. And we're gonna move the pods one, Rob, because we'll move the pods one, because it's not, like,
Yeah,
there's no one
that's fine.
financially counting on that passing, right?
That's fine.
Okay, moving on, we have another,
Thank you.
thank you very much, I appreciate your time. We have another public hearing scheduled for Town Plaza 2 zone change petition. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Matari, all in favor? All right, is there anyone, no one signed in on this particular one, which regards shifting over a zone line so that there's not allowed to have a restaurant in their shopping center instead of being industrial? Did you want to speak for a moment? I don't think we have anyone to comment, but you can say a few words and.
I think the board is familiar with what we're trying to do here. You've announced it. If you have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
All right, great. We're just gonna get those doors closed real quick. Thank you.
I do have the board here, so.
Okay. So, again, I'm just gonna ask again, is there anyone here to comment on this particular item or no?
No.
All right. So this is the second time we've had this
Move to close.
going on. A motion to close the public hearing from Councilman Troy, all in favor? Oh, sorry, second, Councilman Valentine, all in favor? All right. And then number 5, that we just did, and now we're going to adopt a negative declaration with respect to it. Moved by Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Oops, sorry, microphone hit.
Right, and then just on 7, it's the enacting resolutions, and it does include that we heard from county planning, county highway, and the New York State DOT, all having really no objections.
All right, and we need a roll call on this? or-
Sorry, and county drainage agency, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the actual change to the law, which will shift over the LI district, decreasing that and moving it to CC.
Right, moving the entire thing from
Yeah, move the-
CC and LI to CC.
Yeah, basically make the lot entirely CC instead of split. Councilman Divney is the motion, Councilman Batari is the second. Roll call vote, please, Deputy Clerk.
Okay, Councilman Troy?
Yes?
Councilman Dibney? Yes. Councilman Valentine?
Yes.
Councilman Batari?
Yes.
And Supervisor Day?
Yes. Okay,
Okay,
congratulations.
thank you very much.
Yeah. Hope it's a good restaurant that was. All right, now we're on 8. We have one last hearing. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing regarding the emergency tree hazard on Lawrence Street? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? No one signed in. Is there anyone here to comment on this? It was a fairly resolved issue in the courts, fortunately, due to intense work by our dedicated town attorneys. Well, we can just close it out. And, you don't need to vote on it. No, we have nothing to vote on. The issue has been resolved to the satisfaction of our attorneys, and I think thankfully, because we gave it so much attention, the guy moved. So we basically made it happen without having to do anything, so.
As Chris said, he addressed 2 2/3 of the issue by basically cutting 2 of the trees down. and trimming the other one to such an extent that the building department was satisfied, our office was satisfied, and we did get
Got a guilty plea, too.
a guilty plea out of him. He admitted to the wrongdoing, and we did get a message from the arborist for the property owner that the people who trimmed the tree that remains was strong, and, again, I guess there's no guarantees in life, but certainly it's been, the situation's much, much different than it was before we had the hearing and took him to court.
Okay, so we're just going to move to close it at this point. Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor? Aye. All right, great work. And now we have a series of proposed resolutions. There's a couple more that we're going to have to vote on in the course of it, which we briefly touched on in the past, but the next one is going to be our proposed resolution to set the public hearing for, to open the public hearing on the 26th for the appointed Lake DePan, and then a proposed resolution to close or continue that public hearing, a secret declaration proposed resolution, and a resolution amending the local law relating to that. That's all in that package of point stuff that'll be on the 26th. Then we're going to also have another public hearing for Cassie Girl on June 26th at 8:15. That's going to be open, then continued or closed. We have it. Now, is this one that we're going to have to continue to the 17th, or is it in case we want to, we would put it on the 17th?
I think we're okay with that. Jane, did we get everything from them secret-wise? Were we waiting on anything for them?
Cassie Girl.
Right, okay, I got them.
So we won't
Okay.
necessarily have to continue Cassie Girl.
No.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move their tentative one to the 24th and replace it with the Pac District one, since we probably won't have to do it anyway.
Of July, okay.
Yeah, of July. 'Cause it most likely won't have to do the Cassie Girl one.
So we're moving the point.
We're moving, no, the point is staying, we're gonna move Cassie Girl's backup hearings. We should be able to vote on it on the 26th. So
Okay.
theoretically, though, we wanna keep a space to move it to, but we'll move it to the 24th if we need to continue it on the of July. Because it's not, we probably won't need to continue it. Just, we need to have the placeholder. Okay, secret determination placeholder.
And they're, since there's no zoning board, they're not getting to the zoning board if they get approved until September anyway.
Yeah, right, we're not really holding it up anyway. But they probably won't make it, we probably won't even have to continue it, but if we do, at least we have a space for it.
Even if they do, then there's no way
Yeah.
they're not zoning.
It's not slowing them down. Yeah.
That's correct. You know, so you're not.
Right.
They're going September or October.
Okay. All right, so then 17 is the blank space to adopt it. And then the next one on 18 is the proposed local law to amend the code for performance standards. That we'll be opening up the public hearing for that. We will have the final version, for this in time to be able to vote on it on the 26th, rather than continuing to continue it like we've been doing. 19th is the, what is that one? Is that the actual law, or is that? 19. Oh, no, it's closing the public hearing on the 19, seeker on the 20, then the actual local law on 21, and then that's done with that issue. So then we're going to go with the resolution to set the public hearing date for the changes to our filming code in Orangetown. This is one, we're voting on this one, we have to vote on this one in order to circulate it. So this is what we talked about in circulated, where we're going to change the way that we're doing the film code revisions that we sent around. So in order to set the public hearing, we would be voting on setting the public hearing tonight and sending out the intent to pursue to serve as lead agency for SECRA. 22 first, and then it'll be 23 after. So motion on Councilman Divney for 22, and a second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Okay. And then 23 for the intent to serve as lead agency. Is there a motion on that one? Councilman Troy, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? Great. 24, this will be the day we end up scheduling our budget special town board meeting to go through the department heads. We don't have to vote on it tonight because it's not town sensitive. It's okay. Then we have the business expense advisors. This is the consultant that came in and looked at the possible savings. He gets 50% of the savings over 2 years. If he implements it, we're going to have to approve the contract that lets him then actually get the savings now that he's done his evaluation. But we don't have to vote tonight. This will be on the 26th. And then we have a agreement for service for our new LED lights from Albright Electric. We'll be voting on the 26th, which Rob will have finished by then. We're going to take the money up front from the finance stuff, and then we're going to pay out from the town. It's the only way to make it work with the with the, what's called the NYSERDA grant and everything.
Maintenance can't be bonded.
Yeah, you can't bond the maintenance, you can't, and they can't close out the grant and everything without it being all paid out. So they have to pay out to us the money, we'll take it, and then we'll sign a contract. And they already were in the contract so the approvals are there. And then next one, 27, this is, we would be purchasing the downtown message board for the corner of Middletown Road and Central Avenue in Pearl River at the cost of $14,985, authorizing that purchase. This will be coming up next week. Yes.
And that's coming out of the parking authority funds.
The source from account 5650, I believe that's what I,
That's what it should be.
yeah, it's supposed to be the parking authority funds, yeah. And we'll double check, because I thought Jeff was gonna put the name of the account, but he put the number code, which I don't know the codes of them, so, but I'll double check that. Then we have the proposed resolution to create a new position for Director of Economic Development, Tourism, and Filming, and they will be handling the film permitting as part of those law changes. This will be voted on at the 26th meeting.
Subject to county
Subject
personnel.
to county
getting-
personnel, does say subject to county personnel. We already submitted the PO 28, 27, I was off by one number. It's a special, it's a 28, we were going up a number, to the county, and they're reviewing it. Then we have the cell tower space, where we were able to get an upfront payment for a spot on one of our cell towers. That'll be voted on, it's voted on next week, right, Rob? So we,
Next time, right?
yeah, so next time. So we have a couple of minor things that Teresa's working on with that, but the substantive part of it is done. Then accept, receive, file documents received in the town clerk's office for 30. Sewer registrations for DME for 31. Approve right-of-way dedication and non-exclusive deed of easement for bus shelter at Walgreens on 32. Then 33, and if anyone has any questions, please stop me, I'm just trying to get through it. Town board workshop this is setting a public hearing. We're voting on this one to set a public hearing for the changes to the code related to storage containers on residential properties. This was a code change designed to, maybe Jane, if you want to get up and explain it to everyone, because it's, I think, worthy of explanation. This is just setting the public hearing, to be clear, but I think just maybe a 2-second quick explanation as to why we're doing it.
Okay, some felt that this was in relationship to the property in Pearl River where the gentleman was living in the pod. That's not the situation. These are popping up all over the place. Everyone sees them. People are doing work. Some put them on the property and they're not actually doing work. They don't have a construction permit. Right, and there's no regulation in our code for it, where to place it on the property, how long it can be there. So we did look at some adjacent municipalities, and they have some laws on the books that regulate the locations as well as how long they can be on the property. And we looked at those, and we actually, ours is less restrictive than, say, Clarkstown's is very tight. It's 90 days, and you have to remove it. So, we sat down with Rob, went through a couple different options, and the idea is, especially with the smaller lots, people are putting them right in their front yard or their side yard. So the neighbor's walking out of their house and for a year is looking at a big storage container. So the idea is to try to at least control the placement of it and the length of time that they can be on a lot. Right now, we have nothing. We can't enforce it. If someone calls with a complaint, there's really nothing we can do about it. Obviously, if there's a safety situation, then we can address it. But as far as just a property maintenance issue, we don't have anything that gives us the authority to control how long and the location. So that's the purpose of this proposal.
And you wouldn't need to even tell the building department about it for how many days, 14 days, if you could have it without any involvement of the government at all?
Yes, correct. And that's meant for people who are maybe just cleaning out or looking to move, moving into a house or moving out of a house. That's understandable. They have to have it there so you can fill it. If they know that, say, they need 2 months to clean out their house, they just come in for the permit. We issue the permit, and then they have their 90 days to do it, or 180 days. In fact, I forget where we set on. 180. So that's a pretty good window. And if they need to renew it, they can. But the idea is, again, to try to limit them just sitting there for 2 years, 3 years in inappropriate locations, because they are unsightly and it's not fair to the neighbors.
Does anyone have any questions before?
Right.
Again, it's just to set the public.
I think your question was, the first 2 weeks, you don't need a permit.
Yeah.
Right.
If you just get it because you want to move, it's going to take you a week, you put stuff in. So the first 2 weeks, you don't have to get the permit, but after that, that's when you have to get it.
So besides the one guy in Pearl River, how big of a problem is this in town?
It's not that we've received formal complaints, but we get the questions a lot. Whether it's someone who's starting construction, where can I put this? And we kind of guide them and say, well, it's probably best if you put it here, but there's nothing that we can turn to and say, here's the regulations. And I think it's best if we have something that we can look at. So again, it's a question that's asked a lot. We have had some informal complaints. Well, my neighbor's got a pod, what can I do about it? But again, it's something that is coming up.
So I got a question. The guy goes to get a pod because he's doing construction, his house caught on fire, whatever. He can't fit it on his side yard or in his backyard, so he has to put his thing, now he has to go for a variance to put
Yes.
a pod on a temporary basis?
You
I
could
think
put
we're
it,
starting to overregulate, I'm sorry.
you can put it in the driveway.
Right.
That was specifically put in because typically, I guess-
Typically, you put it in the driveway.
Right, so that's specifically in there that it can be in a driveway. It's, I guess,
So
Well,
if the driveway's
again-
in front of the house,
no, that's why we
It's
said
okay,
you could
yeah.
do it in a
It's
driveway.
excluded.
Right.
Driveway's excluded.
Drive,
wherever
it's
it is.
permitted in a driveway.
It's only the actual.
Even
yard.
if it's in the front. We're talking, not in the front yard. And the other issue is, in a way, this kind of gives it a, the blessing, if you will, because theoretically, they could be structures that would need permits, and it just would create a,
Yeah.
Correct, if it's bigger than 10 by 10, it technically needs a permit anyway.
so in a way, it kind of authorizes it under limited conditions.
Correct, and that word typical always scares me. Because it's not necessarily typical. I've seen them or I've seen them sometimes almost on people's property lines, so the neighbor walks out of their front door and they're looking right at it, or they're sitting on their back deck and there's a steel container. And again, if it's in construction and we have, say, be 5 feet off the property line, I think it's realistic because they couldn't put a shed there, even temporary or not. We have it even for, if you don't need a permit for your shed, we still have a regulation that says where you have to put it. It still has to be 5 feet off the property lines. It still has to be in your backyard or your side yard. It can't be in your front yard. So that's really the gist of this code, but apply it specifically to pods because we don't reference them at all in our code.
And just, maybe just an idea, how does it, with the 14 days, I mean, for me, it's important to not overburden people, but to have an ability to deal with an obvious problem when it's there. Do we want to extend
My
that?
problem is it's not an obvious problem.
I don't see how, I mean,
Paul,
you-
I had a neighbor, not close to me, say about a block and a half away, had the pod in front of the house for a year. I also know somebody else in Japan that had the pod out there for 2 years. And the person had different problems or whatever, and the building department did go after him and he came up with a plan to get rid of the pod. But I'm just saying, it's not all over the place, but there are people who abuse it, and having
So
180,
the few people
having
that
180
abuse
days,
it,
having 180 days is not a bad thing.
No, but Dennis, it could take you 3 to 6 weeks to get a permit. So now you're trying to do something at your house, and you apply for a permit, and it goes on the pile, and then
That's a different problem.
well, I think my point is what I'm about to say is that I think we need to be in a situation where 90% of what you're going to want to do wouldn't require a permit to get a pod there. You just make sure you don't put it in certain spots. That's
Right.
the intent. So before we circulate this with a different language, why don't we?
It's not just pods, it's like.
Well, any storage
10
container.
yard.
Yeah, 10-yard dumpsters or, the big things.
I mean, if it's demo or if it's moving out, it's gonna be usually, you're gonna fill that up very quickly. I mean, I had a 10-yard dump around my, dropped off Friday, picked up Monday, you know?
well, yeah, you pay for those, right, so they get them out of there pretty quick.
Right, which most of them
No,
are
it
paid.
was completely filled. It was,
So
There's a house on Yale Terrace, it's got 2 containers they're running a business out of for over 2 years, probably closer to 4.
It's in his backyard,
Okay.
10 feet off the property line.
Right, but in this case, he'd need a permit.
You should have got a permit
He
anyways,
would
right? But
need a permit,
My
and then
s-
we'd be able to know that he's running a business out of it because he'd have a permit.
He's doing a lot.
Pod, container,
Well-
tomato.
My suggestion is to address the concerns that Paul's bringing up, is the 14 days. I don't think it's normal for people to have a temporary, quote-unquote, container in their driveway for more than a month. So maybe before we circulate this as 14 days, the odds of it being, if we change it from 14 days to 30 days, if it gets the effect of the law, we can control where they go. We're not cracking down on anyone who accidentally missed their move date or something like that. And is everyone okay with making 14/30 and then circulating it as that? Jerry? Are you guys okay shifting it from 14 days without telling the building department to 30? That way we're 100% covered that no people who are trying to do the right thing are getting sucked into this process?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm talking about extended. Look, if people have something to do and something get done, I understand that.
Right.
But,
Right, well, I mean, this creates the goal is to create a framework to enforce it when it's wrong, but not unduly burden a resident just trying to do the right thing. Tom, you good with
Shouldn't
30
become a spare
circulated then
garage.
instead of 14? Yeah. Okay. So, all right, so let's go ahead then. Can we vote, is there a motion to set the town, we have to vote on this, so the motion to set the public hearing for this for July 17th? Is there? Yeah, setting the public hearing anyway. I just don't want to circulate with the wrong number and then have to recirculate. So Paul with the motion for circulation, a second from Councilman, as amended, yes. As amended, it's, again, for the clerk, it's 14 days, becomes 30 days for being in place in Article 5. All in favor? Okay, and then we have to actually circulate, this is why I want to amend it, because we're going to circulate it. Circulate for lead agency for seeker. Is there a motion? Councilman Vitari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? All right. Moving on. 35, proposed resolution. This is for setting public hearing on changes to the town code regarding a regulation of commercial building internal subdivisions. Rob is still working on the final language of that, so we can't vote it right now, but the general concept is that it's going to be, right now, we're the only town that requires you to go to the planning board for any type of commercial subdivision. None require that at all. We're gonna back that away and make it that if you're just turning an office into 2 offices and it doesn't affect the parking, you don't have to go planning board, it's just building inspector. If you're going from retail to office or retail to industrial, you have to go to the planning board. That's kind of the compromise to make it, if it's a change of use, then you have to go. If not, you're saving 2 months off guys trying to get their space occupied with tenants. But we're not voting on that now, obviously, because we don't have the language. 37, resolution for assistance to the Father's Day Run in Pearl River. 38, we're working on language for this, but it's accepting a grant funding that we've been given. We have to actually have a resolution to accept it, and Rob's working that out with Eric and Jim. Parks and Rec, first one's a proposed one for extending the agreement for tree service and tree pruning, and then also proposed one for the boiler replacement. We don't have a person on that yet, right? It's still blank. Okay. You wanted it on there for the workshop. Sounds good. And then this 41 we have to vote on. This is the the use of the Masonic Fairgrounds. The Noble Ninth is just the legal entity that owns it of the Masons. We have to vote on that so the kids can actually go to camp. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second. Councilman Tari, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Then we have a proposed bid for the variable message boards. Do you know how many message boards it is? I was asking that before. Is Jim here? This is the next page, highway. We're accepting an awarding bid for variable message boards. It's probably in the backup, but I'll look it up later. I forget how many it was. So that's being just voted on next time. Figure that out. Then David Alvarez to attend wastewater operator certification course. Michael Grant to attend USEPA Northeast Pretreatment Training. And we have 2 resolutions for appointment of personnel that to be voted on. Is there a motion on 45? 44 is not voting. 44 is what it's the last page to appoint for maintenance supervisor of sewage systems. We have to fill in the names. We just had our interviews. Go ahead. Yeah, just you can't just. Yeah.
Tom Fitzmaurice.
Okay.
For the maintenance supervisor.
Okay. Is there a second? Councilman Batari, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. And then resolution to appoint someone for the assistant maintenance supervisor.
That's Steve Fordham.
Steve Fordham. Is there a motion for Steve Fordham?
Steve Fordham?
Councilman Batari with a motion to appoint Steve Fordham. Second by Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
47, approving the town budget calendar for the 2019 budget year. there was a lot of extraneous stuff in this calendar when we looked at it, me and Jeff, from like other people's budgets, so we just edited it down for this year to make it simpler. Is everyone good with this? Are you looking at the calendar?
Yes, best as I can tell you.
Okay, so we're looking at, just for everyone who's watching on their YouTubes, 25th will be the meeting where we distribute the tentative budget. It has to be in by the 30th according to the law, and the 8th will be that special town board meeting. And then there's the fire district hearing, a review of the budget for the town board is to complete it by October 16th, and then budget hearing will be held on November 13th of this year. Okay. Is there any new business that anyone did not get on the agenda? No? Okay, so we have 3 adjournments, and then we're also going to move into executive session. So first is Sue Ann Esposito of South Nyack, Margaret Kelly of Pearl River, and Stanley Simon, who is an accountant at the Solid Waste Management Authority, which I serve as a board member. Sue Ann Esposito is the one that was hit by a car the other day in Nyack and as a pedestrian. So I move we adjourn in honor of Sue Ann Esposito, Margaret Kelly, and, I'm sorry, we're moving, we enter executive session to discuss matters of litigation, and immediately thereafter adjourn in honor of Sue Ann Esposito, Margaret Kelly, and Stanley Simon. Is there a second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.